Buzz, 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 Yellowjackets Hive, and welcome back for a sorry, let me clear my throat. Special hiatus episodes of sorts. Apologies for not being on time. I was having a couple issues with my destinations not the stream was not connecting to the destinations. And I will admit, I am not the most tech savvy person, so it took me a second to figure it all out. But this episode tonight or today is special in itself because it's a little different. Obviously, this podcast was developed over a love for a specific show, that being Yellowjackets. So we clearly spend a lot of time discussing Yellowjackets, but for tonight's episode, I wanted to shine the spotlight on a few of the other shows that take up available space within my brain as well, because there are a ton, so many. I want some people collect stamps, and some people collect shoes. I collect TV shows. These shows are not just entertainment, they are literally an entire world that I can disappear into, characters that I can root for, and stories that have obviously stuck with me a long time after the credits have finished rolling. In no particular order, I'll give you a rundown of the shows that I'm going to be putting in the spotlight today. This is not in the order of how I favor them, which one is my favorite, or anything like that, because I honestly don't know if I could actually choose an overall favorite show. It was hard enough for me to whittle it down to these shows. So, Game of Thrones, Stranger Things, The Sopranos, Mindhunter, Sons of Anarchy, Euphoria, and Mad Men, along with a few at the end. Hi, Angie. Along with a few at the end that I'm going to give, we'll call it an honorable mention. And of course, Yellowjackets will get a shout out as well. As you can tell by this list that I've given you, I love all genres of TV. Covering all topics and all subject matter. I rewatch shows and series kind of depending on what my current mood is. Or like the season of life that I'm in at that particular time, if that makes any sense to you. Sometimes I'm in need of a show that's going to give me some comfort. Sometimes I want some suspense and mystery. Sometimes I just want to escape, period. I will say, though, I don't watch multiple shows at one time when it comes to rewatching a show that I've already watched. Like if I start watching Game of Thrones, I will finish that entire rewatch before I dive into another. New TV shows obviously have different rules. You can watch a new TV show and an old TV show at the same time. It makes sense in my brain. But all these shows pulled me in for different reasons. But they all obviously had a very lasting effect on me because I can't stop watching and now rewatching. I also just love to talk about TV shows that I love with other people in my life. I love trying to persuade people to watch a show that I'm into, and I love when I'm successful. Whether it be debating theories, dissecting character development, laughing about a crazy plot twist, like these are all reasons that I want to discuss the shows that I mentioned with you guys today. So buckle up and grab your front row seat to the shows that live in my brain. So the first show that I'm highlighting today is the show that truly got me into binge watching television and nerding out over a series like I never have before in my life, which would be Game of Thrones. I know a ton of people have watched it and loved it, minus the last season, but I also know plenty of people who have never dove into George R.R. Martin's insane world of Westeros. Westeros is where everyone lives, FYI, if you've never watched. I will be honest, I did try Game of Thrones once, not long after the very first season aired on television in 2011, and I was not feeling it whatsoever. But then my husband and I ended up moving into a new house, and we were without cable for almost a month. So he downloaded the seasons that had already aired. And we started watching the show a little bit before season 5 hit TV. And I was so hooked. So hooked. If you think that you're not like into that sort of thing, period pieces, medieval stories, or fantasy, I implore you to give it a shot. There is so much to this show. It's got dragons and direwolves and plots to overthrow kings and incest, which is gross, but it is historically accurate. Crazy battle scenes, romance, like literally everything that you could ever imagine, and then more. There are 8 episodes or 8 seasons. So yes, it's definitely a commitment, but it's 100% worth it. The first 6 seasons have 10 episodes each, and then season 7 has 7 episodes, and the final season wraps it up with 6. And within the show, if you've never watched, 4 family names dominate the story, and you're going to hear them over and over and over again. The Lannisters, the Starks, the Baratheons, and the Targaryens. I'm not going to get too deep in case anybody watches that has never seen it before, and I could go on a million tangents at any given moment. But the general premise is the struggle for the Iron Throne to be king of Westeros and rule over everybody who lives there. And those 4 families are at the very top of the food chain within this battle for power. And there are plenty of battles and even wars for land and for influence. And when you add in the dragons and the red priestesses and so many other mystical elements, there is always a layer of wonder and danger. So let's talk about characters, or specifically a character, my favorite, Jon Snow, or as the show famously puts it, you know nothing, Jon Snow. I'm actually wearing a Jon Snow t-shirt that I got forever ago. It says Snow 2008, and underneath it, it says Make the North Great Again. I couldn't resist. Jon Snow, who is played by Kit Harington, and those big brown eyes just suck me in every single time. He is an honorable and a complex and frustrating and kind character. I could keep going. Jon Snow is actually the bastard son of the head of the Stark household. So he's affiliated with the Starks. But I obviously had a very big time crush on him. And out of the 8 seasons, it is really hard to pick a favorite episode, because when I say that the show blew my mind, like, there were so many episodes where at the end I was sitting there with my mouth open, like, did that really just happen? It kept topping like the epic moments that occurred as time went on. But I have to mention the season 6 finale. That was so awesome. The special effects in the show are insane. I mean, they have dragons, so obviously you know that's CGI. But also the Battle of the Bastards, and the infamous Red Wedding episode. And for anyone who does not know what the Red Wedding is, the only thing I'm going to say is you will literally never forget it. A couple of warnings, though. The show does feature a ton of death, much of it being incredibly gruesome, like it is medieval times after all. And never, ever get too attached to any character at any point ever. I learned that in the hardest way after the season 1 finale. But if you love stories that are rich in character development, intricate world building, the lengths that George R.R. Martin went to create this world is just mind-boggling. And high stakes drama, Game of Thrones is going to deliver that on all fronts for you. It's not just about fantasy, it's kind of about the human experience under extreme circumstances, like courage, loyalty, ambition, and definitely the cost of power. Jon Snow's journey in particular is incredibly inspiring because it's a blend of like kind of heroism mixed with like deep vulnerability and moral complexity. Like I said, even if fantasy is not usually your thing, the mix of like political maneuvering within and the complex characters and the emotional storytelling makes it feel relatable, intense, and so binge worthy. And I think a big reason why this show appealed to me the way that it has is because of how deep you can dive into this fictional world. I read the first book, I listened to all the books on audio, and the books obviously have more than the shows do. So, uh, I'm also a huge Harry Potter nerd and have been since I was a kid. I grew up reading the books. I went to every midnight premiere of every movie. And it's been a very long time since I've had a world that I could dive as deeply into as I did into the Wizarding world. Like George R. R. Martin's imagination is absolutely wild. So, yeah, give it a shot. Second on the list, and very appropriate to be discussing, given that the final season drops in 16 days. Not that I'm counting and awaiting it literally to the minute, is Stranger Things. I love this show. And I know a lot of other people do. It's popular. Uh so very much. Like the Duffer Brothers are absolute geniuses. It's a thrilling mix of like sci-fi, horror, and amazing 80s nostalgia. I am an 80s baby. All set in the seemingly quiet and ordinary town of Hawkins, Indiana. And at its core, this story focuses on a group of middle school friends. And early on, one of the boys, Will, goes missing under extremely strange circumstances. So both his friends and family become incredibly entangled in uncovering secrets that end up revealing a hidden world just beyond the one that they live in. AKA the Upside Down. I can't wait for season 5 of Stranger Things. You have no idea how excited I am for this, Angie. I know so many, I will touch on this a little bit, but I know so many people are still annoyed at the wait, but I'm going to be watching every single episode, and I'm probably going to love every second, despite the fact that it's been 3 years since we've seen a new episode. A key aspect of what makes the show so good is its ensemble cast. Like the main characters include a very tight-knit group of kids, their families, and some town authorities, all of whom become connected as the mystery continues to unfold. It's kind of felt a little special to me to have had a front row seat, kind of in a way, to watch these kids. They were literal kids when the show started. It started 10 years ago. So, like, they've now grown into these amazing young adults that they are now. I mean, come on, Millie Bobby Brown is 21 and married with a baby now. That's insane. Watching the show also makes me laugh at times. Like, things were so different in the 80s. These like 12-year-old kids are running around and their parents have literally not a clue where they are for days at a time. This was in the age before cell phones existed, before even pagers were a thing. And these parents were like, "Oh, haven't seen Mike in what is it now, 3 days? He's probably okay though." It's just like, can you even imagine something like that happening now? Like, not even a little bit. But like I said before, the 80s nostalgia is part of what makes the show work as well as it does. Between the awesome music and the soundtrack, like I literally still play Kate Bush's Running Up That Hill on repeat, to the fashion and the pop culture references, the video games, the show is basically a love letter to the decade that is the 80s. Even if you didn't grow up in the 80s or you weren't even born yet, the atmosphere is so full of personality. When I went on my annual summer trip to visit Pennsylvania this summer, I introduced my 11 and 9-year-old nephews to the show, and they were hooked by the middle of the first episode. Even my 6-year-old has asked me to watch it and can accurately identify the characters correctly. No, he has not watched it, but he has been begging. This is another show that really displays the depths of the creator's imagination and creativity, which is part of the reason, again, why I'm so drawn to it. I am not usually a sci-fi person, so I was not sure that this show was going to be the show for me, but obviously I was wrong. My husband and I just did a full series rewatch, and we finished in October, so everything is fresh in my mind for the premiere of the final season. I have a hard time picking favorite characters, but as of now, I'm going to call it a tie between Dustin Henderson, played by Gaten Matarazzo, and Steve Harrington, played by Joe Keery. I swear on all that is holy that if Steve and Dustin do not make it to the end, I'm going to have some incredibly strong feelings about it. The relationship between those two in particular is probably my favorite overall in the entire show. Like their comedic banter is just it's so good. I am partial to season 4 as my favorite season so far. All of the seasons are excellent for their own reasons, but the introduction of the real villain in this story like took things up a big notch. And the special effects in season 4 were off the wall. Like, but that said, I would have to say that my favorite scene to date is definitely from season 3. Dustin and Susie, Dustin's girlfriend from summer camp, their duet of the song from the Neverending Story, just oh my gosh, I love that scene so much. If you happen to live under a rock and have not watched this show yet, you should absolutely do it. Especially if you have kids that are, I would say, like around the age of 10 and older, depending on what scares them. If you have a kid that's 5 and loves everything scare horror, go for it. Don't think it'll scare them whatsoever. Just obviously use your judgment. But this is a show that can be watched and loved by almost anybody, no matter what their age is. So it's a show that you can watch with your family, which is nice. And I know a lot of people vent about the long gaps between seasons of the show, and I get it. Like, we live in a world of instant gratification now, but this show uses CGI and special effects so heavily, especially in season 4, which are added in after the filming is finished, and that takes a really long time to complete. Each episode is essentially a movie, and I read that Netflix spent in between 50 to 60 million dollars per episode for the final season, which is anywhere between 400 and 480 million dollars total for the season. And to put that in perspective for you, the final season of this show had a higher budget than Avengers Endgame. That blew my mind when I read that. If you are a fan of sci-fi mixed with comedy, loaded with tons of 80s nostalgia and a bit of horror thrown in, Stranger Things will 100% be up your alley. And I am awaiting November 26th. The next show I'm going to talk about holds a very special place in my heart for a big reason. Being Italian gives me a personal connection to this show, The Sopranos. Created by David Chase and produced by HBO, it premiered when I was younger in 1999 and wrapped up its final season in 2007 when I was a senior in high school. My husband is actually the one who got me into The Sopranos. He is fascinated by Italian culture, specifically the mafia. Like, he loves all mafia movies. If you have never watched this show, buckle up because you are in for it. The show is widely considered to be one of the greatest TV series of all time, and there is very good reason for that statement. It is set primarily in northern New Jersey, and it follows Tony Soprano, played by the legendary James Gandolfini, who is a man who is trying and pretty failing a majority of the time to balance running a powerful criminal organization with everything else in his life. What makes the show so compelling isn't just the crime aspect of it, it's the characters. It's incredibly character driven. You get a front row seat to all aspects of Tony's life, like his family, his friends. Though I Now that I think about it, I'm not sure he had any real friends at all. But his associates and even his therapy sessions, because when you're in the mafia, you don't go to therapy. Like, that doesn't happen. The show doesn't shy away from exploring themes like mental health, morality, and the cost that you pay to be in power. It's intense, but it also is darkly funny at the exactly the right moments. Few shows have made me feel both overwhelming hatred and sympathy at the same time for a character like Carmela Soprano, who is Tony's wife, played by the epic Edie Falco. She is magnificent. And as I mentioned, the cultural aspect adds so much for me personally. Like the dialogue, the words and phrases that you hear, the food, the family gatherings, the devotion to family. It all hits really close to home. I will forever think of my grandmother every single time Olivia Soprano, Tony's mom, stepped on screen wearing the exact same housecoat that my grandmother wore around her house. Watching the show is definitely a commitment with 6 seasons and 86 episodes, but every single one is worth it. Like, my husband watched it when it was originally on television. He was in college at the time. Well, he was in college for a few seasons of the show. And every week, like, he would host a weekly pizza and pasta party with his friends so they could all watch it together. And I won't lie, after I watched this series for the first time, I was a little enraged with how the finale ended initially. But after I sat on it for a little bit, it made perfect sense and it was totally satisfactory. I usually fast forward through the opening credits of almost every show, but this one I watch every single time. Tony Soprano is hands down my absolute favorite character of the series. He may be my favorite fictional TV character of all time, like of all time, out of any show I've ever watched. He is so complex. While some may call him the protagonist of the show, I would personally refer to him as more of like an anti-hero kind of guy. Like, he is not the greatest person in the world, but you still root for him and want to see him succeed and do better. James Gandolfini embodies the mafia capo so fully that it's hard to imagine anyone else having played that role. And fun fact, if you have ever heard him speak in real life, he sounds absolutely nothing like Tony. He nails the accent in the delivery every single scene. I I can't choose a favorite season overall of this show, but season 1 tends to stick out in my mind the most just because you're meeting all the characters. You're beginning to understand the relationships between them, and you're dipping your toes into the world of organized crime, and it's extremely entertaining. One of my favorite scenes is from the pilot when Tony is having a backyard barbecue and he learns that his mom won't be coming. His son AJ, who is around 13 years old at the time, claps back with, "What? No fucking ZD?" I knew right then that I was going to love this show. And another favorite is when Christopher, who is played by Michael Imperioli and is Tony's nephew, and Polly, who is played by Tony Sirico and is one of Tony's associates, are forced to trek through the snow in the dead of winter in the Pine Barrens in New Jersey to chase down a man that they were ordered to take care of. It's hilarious. It's so funny to watch two men in the mafia in suits like trying to chase someone through the snow. It gets me every time. Despite being almost 30 years old now, like when the show, well, 25 years old, like when the show originally premiered, the show feels timeless. Like, it's an absolute masterpiece, and I cannot recommend it highly enough. If you have never watched it, do yourself a favor and start watching it like right now. You are not going to be disappointed. Especially, you might feel similar to the way I feel if you're Italian as well. My husband told me he wishes he was Italian. So, for the next show, attention to all my fellow true crime junkies. This show is going to blow your mind. Despite the fact that it only has 2 seasons, Mindhunter on Netflix is by far my favorite true crime show I have ever watched. And trust me, I have consumed an incredibly unhealthy amount of true crime. I literally fall asleep to it playing on YouTube every single night. I don't know what that says about me as a person, but the show Mindhunter was actually was created by Joe Penhall and produced and directed by David Fincher. It's actually based on the true crime book Mindhunter inside the FBI's elite serial crime unit, and it was written by John E. Douglas and Mark Olshaker. There is so much about this show that makes it incredible. The book was actually written by one of the men responsible for creating the FBI's behavioral science unit back in the 1970s. And the series follows 2 FBI agents in particular, Holden Ford, who serves as an inspiration for Douglas, the man who wrote the book, and he is played by Jonathan Groff, and Bill Tench, who is based off an FBI agent by the name of Richard K. Ressler, and he is played by Holt McCallney. For all you Criminal Minds fans out there, like, you can thank these guys for laying the foundation for profiling shows everywhere. Their work within the FBI was groundbreaking for the time. They actually interviewed imprisoned serial killers to understand how their minds work, aiming to try to prevent future murders from occurring. Like, they wanted to learn more about criminal behavior and try to use it when they are trying to catch criminals in the field and stop them from committing more crime. These interviews are the core of the show. Like, they are so fascinating and they're terrifying and they are utterly chilling. I cannot imagine sitting across from someone as they vividly describe something as horrific as severing a human head. Watching these interactions feels like peering into dark corners of human psychology. And a huge note about the interviews within the show: the dialogue used in the interviews in the show is actually taken word for word from the original recordings that these men did when they interviewed these inmates in person in the 70s and 80s. And the actors that are cast as the actual serial killers that are featured on the show, like, bear such a crazy physical resemblance to the real life individuals. When they show Charles Manson, I thought I was actually looking at Charles Manson. It was insane. And some other serial killers included Ed Kemper, who's referred to as the co-ed killer, Richard Speck, who murdered 8 nursing students near Chicago, and David Berkowitz, aka Son of Sam, to name a couple. The show dives headfirst into the origins of criminal profiling. You actually see them establish terms like serial killer, which before they had that term, they were referred to as sequence killers. And you watch the FBI begin categorizing offenders, analyzing motives, and predicting behavior. I could watch that process on repeat forever. Like, the dedication to accuracy and detail is impeccable in this show. One of my favorite aspects is seeing how law enforcement initially reacts to their work. Like, early on, the person who oversees the behavioral science unit insists that criminals don't need to be understood. They need to be arrested and put to death. But over time, like, he begins to see how valuable this work is for helping to prevent violence and aid law enforcement. It's really fascinating to watch the mindset shift as their work progresses. If I were 18 years old again, I would, without a shadow of a doubt, be majoring in criminal psychology. I know probably entirely too much about serial killers and crime in general, but that's the world that Mindhunter is going to draw you into. For this series, I don't have a favorite season or episode. Like I said, it is all phenomenal and engaging. I lived for all of it. As for a favorite character, Holden takes the cake without question. If anyone knows of Jonathan Groff and the kind of roles he usually plays, I'm going to put it this way. He was one of the lead roles in Hamilton on Broadway, and he was one of the voices in Frozen, Disney's animated Frozen. So this show is a far cry from that, yet he executes the part flawlessly. He is so good. There are only 2 seasons, and there's only a total of 19 episodes, so this one isn't as much of a commitment. But sadly, the second season came out in 2019 with no official word on whether there would be a third season or not. And since then, the creator has not said he was completely closing the door, but he's never confirmed he was going to continue until recently. Holt McCallany, one of the actors from the show, revealed that he has had some conversations with David Fincher about potentially reviving the series with 3 2-hour movies, and I would be front and center for that without hesitation, no question. The show also teases the storyline or introduces you to who you assume at first, I'm not gonna lie, I knew immediately, but of the BTK killer, Dennis Rader, which I would love to see explored further. And since this show is actually based on actual reality and things that happen in real life, like, he could realistically stop it whenever he wants. It just sucked that, like, you get so into it and then you realize that there's no concrete plans for the show to continue, but he's never said, like, it's over for good. So I'll keep holding out hope for that because, like I said, this show is top notch. If you, like me, enjoy shows that make you think, are tense and detailed, and explore human behavior in a way that is chilling and intellectually stimulating, Mindhunter will be for you. Even my husband, who is not usually a true crime fan, he kind of makes fun of me for how much true crime I consume, loves it. It's smart and dark and compelling, and it's going to linger in your mind for a long time after you watch the episode. Now, this next show, I will say right off the bat, comes with a bit of a trigger warning. It is not a light watch. It is sometimes shocking and at times as well emotionally exhausting, but in the best possible way. And that show is Euphoria. Now, this show in particular hits home in a big way for me for some personal reasons. If you haven't given this show a try yet, prepare yourself for a show that's very intense, very raw, and it's unlike anything else on television right now, I would say. It was created by Sam Levinson and it airs on HBO. Euphoria is a drama that dives deep into what it is really like to be a teenager in today's world. And the show follows the lead character, Rue Bennett, who is played by Zendaya, and give her every single award possible for this. She has made me feel things so deep in my soul through her performance in this role. She's so talented. My mind is continuously blown by her performance in this show. And she has snagged an Emmy for her portrayal, and rightfully so. Rue is a teenage girl struggling with addiction, and she's trying to navigate the highs and lows of her chaotic life. Her journey is messy and heartbreaking, but it is also incredibly human and relatable. This show does not sugarcoat her struggles by any means. It is honest, sometimes in a painful way, but that kind of only makes her story feel all the more real, in my opinion. But Euphoria is not just about Rue, even though she is the lens which we experience most of the story through. The series also explores an incredible ensemble of characters, each with their own challenges and complexities. You'll meet Jules, who is played by Hunter Schafer, and she is actually the new kid at school when the show starts out, and Rue befriends her, and they form a relationship over the course of the show. And Jules is a transgender teen who is exploring her identity and relationships. Then there's Nate, who is played by Jacob Elordi. He's a troubled and often overly aggressive jock, aka a douchebag, wrestling with family pressure and his own very inner demons. And there's also Maddie, who is played by Alexia Demi, and she is Nate's girlfriend. And their relationship is both passionate and incredibly toxic, just to name a few of the characters. And each storyline connects in a way that creates like an emotional tapestry of human experience that feels really authentic. And the way the show is filmed, like the cinematography, the lighting, the set design, the music, it's almost like cinematic in a way. It mirrors the heightened emotions of the characters perfectly. And the scene that sticks out in my head the most when I think about this aspect is I can't remember what episode it was. It may actually be no, it wasn't the finale of season 2. It's the episode where Rue goes to church and she ends up out on the street and this like church choir is singing around her and it's so cool. I can't explain it. And watching Euphoria feels immersive, like you're stepping into a world that's chaotic and emotional and heightened, but it's very real. Now, like I said, the subject matter of the show is heavy, but Euphoria focuses on issues that affect so many people today. And in my opinion, if we ever better want to understand these particular types of issues, shows like Euphoria are very important. That is what truly sets the show apart to me. Like, it's fearless. It tackles very difficult, often taboo topics with a lot of nuance and empathy. It does not judge its characters for their flaws. It actually examines the reasons behind their choices and decisions and shows you the consequences that they face as a result of those. And that results in a show that is not only entertaining, it's thought provoking and extremely emotionally impactful. The show has only released 2 seasons so far, and much like Stranger Things, the wait between seasons has been painfully long. A big part of that was COVID and then the writer's strike, and then the passing of one of the series' regulars, cast members in real life, which obviously affected the storyline moving forward. And of course, Zendaya and now Sydney Sweeney are everywhere in Hollywood now, which again added to the delay. My favorite character is hands down Rue, without question. I cannot stress enough how brilliant Zendaya is in this role. She brings so much rawness and heart and soul to such a dark topic. But Fezco, he's a close second. He is the man. As of now, word on the street is that season 3 will finally hit our screens sometime in the spring of 2026. So, to sum it up, Euphoria is way more than just a teen drama. It is powerful, it's immersive, and it explores identity, trauma, and just the overall human experience. Again, once you start, you will not be able to stop thinking about it. For the next show, let's take a trip back to the 1960s. New York City, specifically Madison Avenue. Mad Men. If you have never seen this AMC masterpiece before, let me just say this show is something very special. It was created and spearheaded by Matthew Weiner. It's not your typical drama like with big twists and flashy action. It's very subtle and sophisticated and completely absorbing once you get into it. The show takes place at an advertising agency on Madison Avenue, which, like I've mentioned a second ago, is where the title actually comes from. I love Mad Men. Oh, me too. So much, Angie. I've rewatched that show so many times now. uh, on the surface, it is about the world of advertising. They're sharp, cunning, and ruthless men, and then eventually women who spend their days trying to sell the American dream. But underneath all of that, it's actually a story about identity, like who we are versus who we pretend to be. Mad Men perfectly depicts certain aspects of American life in the 1960s, like people smoking an insane amount of cigarettes wherever and whenever they wanted, drinking copious amounts of alcohol on a daily basis, like in the middle of the day at work. Uh, and the presence of sexism, feminism, adultery, homophobia, anti Semitism, and racism, just to name a few. But at the center of the show is Don Draper, who is played by John Hamm, and he is magnetic. Don is brilliant and serves as the mysterious creative director of the advertising agency who can pretty much sell anything: cigarettes, cars, pantyhose, dreams. But he is also someone who is very haunted by his own secrets. He seems extremely confident and composed on the outside, but he is so conflicted on the inside. Watching his story unfold is fascinating because I wouldn't really classify him as a hero or a villain, like kind of like Tony Soprano in a way. Bottom line, he is very human. And then there's Peggy Olson, who is played by the wonderful Elizabeth Moss, who starts as Don's secretary, and you slowly watch her rise through the ranks in what was at the time an incredibly male dominated industry. Her journey is a powerful one and one of the best character evolutions on television. And then you've also got Joan Holloway, played by Christina Hendricks, who runs the office with intelligence and grace. She uses her never ending charm as both a shield and a weapon at the same time. To put it bluntly, like, Joan is a boss. I love Joan. Mad respect for Joan. And then there's Roger Sterling, probably my favorite character besides Don, played by John Slattery. He is Don's witty and incredibly overly indulgent boss. Every character within the show feels layered and flawed in their unique way. And part of what makes Mad Men so captivating is how immersive it is. Like, the attention to detail is amazing. And like, don't even get me started on the fashion. The dresses that Betty Draper, who is Dawn's wife, played by January Jones, that she wears throughout the course of the show is some of the most beautiful clothing I've ever seen in my life. Quick side note, I do not think I have ever despised a fictional TV character to the degree that I despise Betty, but you will have to watch for yourself to figure out why that is. The music, the smoky offices, the vintage cocktails, like, everything feels incredibly authentic to the 60s. The pacing is deliberate. It's kind of a slow burn show that's pulls you in quietly until you find yourself 100% invested. Every scene and line of dialogue feels very intentional. And visually, the show is stunning. The fashion, the set design, the props, like, it all works together to tell the story so well. But what I love the most about Mad Men is how it peels back the layers of, like, who someone really is. These are people whose literal job is to sell perfection, like to make others want something that they probably don't even need. But at the same time, their own lives are so messy and incredibly unfulfilled. The show examines that contrast in a very beautiful way, and it shows how easily people can lose themselves while they're trying to project what they think is the perfect image to others. I have watched this one countless times. It's one of my go-to comfort shows. There is just something about it that has stuck with me for a long time. The show itself ran for 7 seasons in total, 92 episodes, which I know sounds like a lot, but trust me, it is worth your time. Out of the 7 seasons, I would say season 4 is probably my favorite. You get to learn a lot more about Dawn, like a peek behind the mysterious curtain. And it's also the season where Don parts ways with Sterling Cooper and forms his own agency alongside a handful of others who leave to join him. It's really exciting and it's very entertaining for a host of reasons. And one moment that will forever stick out to me comes from a scene featuring a secretary riding an actual lawnmower through their office, and she somehow manages to cut off one of the admin's feet. it is horrifying and hilarious at the same time. So, if you enjoy shows that are smart, character driven, and full of complex emotional depth, Mad Men will definitely be for you. It's stylish and thoughtful, and it is deeply human. It captures an era, but it at the same time says a lot about who we are today, too. Once you start it, you will quickly see why the show is considered one of the best shows that's ever been made. Now, the last show that I'm going to go in depth on tonight is one that is near and dear to my heart because of my overflowing love for the beautiful Charlie Hunnam. Sons of Anarchy. The show gets its name from the club that it centers around. Sons of Anarchy Motorcycle Club, Redwood Original. Technically, they call themselves Sam Crow for short. Now, I actually watched this one when it originally aired on TV, and let me tell you, Sons is a very gritty and intense drama that dives headfirst into the world of outlaw motorcycle clubs and their inner workings. Not something that I would have thought I would enjoy at first, but it's so good. Set in the fictional northern town of Charming, the show was created by Kurt Sutter and aired on FX while it was running. It is part crime drama, part family saga, and part character study, layered with loyalty, morality, and so many power struggles throughout. And at the center of it all is Jax Teller, played by, you guessed it, Mr. Charlie Hunnam. I don't think that I even knew that he is actually British until the show had ended. And when I found out, I was so shocked. His American accent is so flawless. Like when I heard his actual real speaking voice, I thought it was a joke. I was like, that's not the way he sounds. That doesn't fit him. I was like, whew, he's very good at an American accent. And Jax is deeply connected to the operations and traditions within the club. His father was the former president and one of the 9 original founding members of the club until his death. And at the start of the series, Jack serves as vice president of the club with his stepfather, who is played Clay, who is played by Ron Perlman. And let me tell you, I loathe Clay, is the president. And fun fact, Jackson's mom on the show, Gemma, is played by Katie Seagal, who is actually the real life wife of the creator, Kurt Sutter. Jax is the show's protagonist, and part of his appeal is that while he's clearly a loyal member of the club, he doesn't always play by their rules. Like, he does not look exactly like your typical biker gang guy. He wears Nike sneakers. He has long hair. He wears flannel shirts. Like, not your stereotypical biker gang dude. But early in the series, he finds a manuscript of sorts that was written by his father called The Life and Death of Sam Crow: How the Sons of Anarchy Lost Their Way. And in it, his father reflects on the desire to distance himself from the club's violent lifestyle. He wanted to take the club in a different direction. And that discovery has a massive impact on Jax and the direction that he then wants to take the club in. While the show does revolve around the club's illegal and, not gonna lie, often violent dealings, what makes it compelling is how it explores the personal lives and relationships and the inner conflicts of the characters. Every member of the club has their own backstory and motivations and their own moral code. Like, there are rules that they all abide by, but then there are rules that, like, some of them are like, yeah, I'll follow that, and others are like, fuck it. But the show does an incredible job of making you care about people who live in a very morally gray world, and maybe even some who don't have any morals whatsoever. If Sons is an accurate portrayal of what being in a real motorcycle club like the likes of Hell's Angels is like, all I can say is I am all for excitement, but I would much rather watch it on my TV screen than ever have it be my reality. And speaking of Hell's Angels, they actually served as the inspiration for Sam Crow. And the show actually even features a real life former member of Hell's Angels. The biggest difference that I noticed between Sam Crow and real biker gangs is that while Sam Crow might be outlaws, there are certain lines that they don't cross. Like they refuse to bring drugs into their town. Like they do their best to keep the area that they live in safe. Most of their illegal activities take place elsewhere. And much like Hell's Angels, Sam Crow has charters all over the country. Sons of Anarchy is also a story about family, like both literal family and then the brotherhood within the club. And those bonds, like the bonds between the guys in the club, are so much more intense with the bonds that they have with their families. Uh, they're often tested, but they're always central to the story. Themes like loyalty, betrayal, love, and revenge play out in ways that are incredibly unpredictable, gripping, and sometimes downright shocking. The show spans 7 seasons with 92 total episodes. Another big commitment, but totally worth it. Motorcycles actually terrified me, but ever since watching the show, I can't help but sneak a glance at whoever is riding one when I see them go by. Like, I will never forget. This was years ago when I still lived in Pennsylvania. I was driving down the highway one time and an entire charter of the Pagans Motorcycle Club passed me. I was so excited to having seen something like that in real life. Like I mentioned earlier, when talking about Mindhunter, like crime in all forms, like it draws me in. I cannot pick a concrete favorite season of this show, but Jax will forever be my favorite bad boy. His journey is one of my favorite character arcs in any TV series ever. Even if you are not typically drawn to crime or gang related shows, Sons of Anarchy will hook you with the character work, the gripping storytelling, and the way that it balances intense action with deep emotional stakes. It is a story about power, identity, and survival in a world where the rules are constantly changing and shifting. Like I said, some of them follow the rules, some of them don't. If you are looking for something that is thrilling and full of drama, like Sons of Anarchy is definitely worth your time. It is a ride, both literally and figuratively, that you are not going to forget. Now, while I wish I could go this in depth about all the shows I want to mention and why I love so many of the shows that I love, realistically, like I would be here for days. But I do have a few more that deserve at least a name drop. First, Mayor of Easttown, aired on HBO. Kate Winslet is absolutely iconic as a police detective just outside of Philadelphia, and her accent is so insanely accurate, it blows my mind. I went to college in Philadelphia for a couple years. I had friends that spoke exactly like her. It was uncanny. And I have loved Kate Winslet since the days of Titanic. And even though it's only one season, it might even be a limited series actually. I have watched it several times. It pulls you in instantly. It's very gripping, it's very emotional, and the cast is very, very good. Now, this one is pretty different from the rest of the shows that I've mentioned so far, but it is one that I've watched numerous times and is very close to my heart, so I have to bring it up. And that would be Downton Abbey, which, yes, is a British show. But secretly, maybe not secretly, I am a huge history nerd. I love learning about the monarchy in British society. And Downton Abbey is about a family within the royalty of England, I guess you could say, from the late 1800s through the 1920s. And it is one of my absolute go-to comfort shows. On a bad day, I will always turn it on. Deep down, I think I secretly wish I was British, actually. American Horror Story, specifically the first season, Murder House. Ryan Murphy was pure genius for the first season, which was the best of the bunch, like by a long shot, in my opinion. Like Evan Peters in that first season, oh, he is so good, and I just adore him. Like, and fun fact, he is also in Mayor of Easttown and the next show I'm going to mention. I am not a huge fan of the more recent installments of American Horror Story in general, but they did just announce that a new season will be premiering next year with Sarah Paulson, Evan Peters, and the queen herself, Jessica Lange, all returning. Hallelujah. Thank you. I have hope that this will actually be a good season. Next, Monster, specifically the Jeffrey Dahmer story. Again, this one clearly appeals to my deep love of true crime. Unless you have lived under a rock, you have definitely heard the name Jeffrey Dahmer in some capacity at some point in your life. I mean, like Katy Perry has a line in her song Dark Horse referring to him, and I'm not a fan of that line. But Dahmer was obviously an incredibly disturbed individual, but Evan Peters' portrayal of him is so captivating. Like, I almost felt bad for the guy, despite the fact that he literally ate people. Like, how is that possible? I remember reading that this role was very difficult for him to play, which obviously makes a lot of sense. Like, when you think about the mindset that he had to get into to portray someone like that. It's very dark, it's very heavy, but if you know Jeffrey Dahmer's story, like, you know what to expect. You know what's going to happen. And the last show I will touch on, this one is true crime, but this one is more of a docu-series. And Making a Murderer. Like, holy moly. This one lives in my head, in my brain, rent free. The amount of deep dives that I have done on this real life case are astronomical. The docu-series follows Stephen Avery, who was wrongfully... Hold on, guys. I'm sorry. I hate to do this, but my cat is making a lot of noise. Get out. Get out. I sincerely apologize for that. There's no way I would have been able to continue if he didn't stop doing that. But the amount of deep dives that I've done on this real life case are crazy. The docuseries follows Stephen Avery, who was wrongfully convicted of rape back in the 1980s. And after spending almost 20 years in prison, 20 years, he is finally exonerated, cleared of all charges, I guess you could say, when law enforcement realizes that they fucked up big time. And so he gets out. He's trying to make a life for himself after having 20 years of his life wrongfully stolen from him. And just as he's trying to do that, like, he sues the county of Manitowoc, Wisconsin for damages for the fact that they wrongfully put him in prison for 20 years. And just after that, a local photographer happens to go missing. And when her body happens to be found on the Avery's property, he obviously becomes the main suspect once again, along with his poor nephew, Brendan. This show had me hooked from the first episode all the way to the very last one. Like, watching the actual investigation unfold in real time and seeing his trial play out was so fascinating and infuriating. I think this one hits me as hard as it does is because of my passion to go into the field of criminal law. I'm currently studying to become a paralegal. This is my last semester of college too, by the way. But I would love the chance to work in some capacity to be able to help someone equivalent to someone like Stephen Avery, somebody who's been wrongfully convicted, and not once, but freaking twice, dude. I could go on. Like, as the show has covered the case from when it began up until present day, at the end of the second season, like, he had retained a very high profile appellate attorney who had already managed to exonerate 17 other wrongfully accused individuals. And he is in the process of appealing, but as we all know, the court system in America is insanely flawed and takes a ridiculous amount of time for any type of resolution on anything. It's ridiculous. And I say that as someone who wants to go into law. But I will end it with a little shout out to the show that obviously brought all of us here in the first place. Yellowjackets, of course. There is no need for me to give an overview of what to expect because I'm assuming most of you that are here are because of Yellowjackets itself. But I mean, we all know it's just such a good damn show. Yes, season 1 was obviously the standout of the 3, but I've loved all 3 and I've devoured every single second of every episode. Hundreds, not hundreds, but a lot of times. I have never in my life theorized so hard about a television show until this one came along. It's been so fun, and I cannot wait to do it all one last time when season 4 drops sometime next year. Now, I am not really technically in the age bracket for the teen cast or the adult cast, so like I'm kind of in the middle. So I kind of relate to both like at different points in time. But one thing is for sure, if I were involved in a plane crash in the remote Canadian wilderness, I would probably be dead within a day or two. Like I am so not a nature person. Like I would like to think that my survival instincts would eventually kick in, but I'm not going to say that's a guarantee. What I think I'm going to miss most after the final season isn't just like the show in general, it's the community that was created because of the show. Like I have met so many cool people and connected with people all over the country because of this show. And it's been such a wild and wonderful ride. I am so ready for season 4, and I'm assuming all of you are too. And with that, it is about time that I call it a night. As you can probably tell from the shows that I have listed and given a little time in the spotlight, my taste in TV is pretty diverse. I love shows that make me think, that challenge me, that pull me in to make me use my brain. And I have always had a wild and active imagination, which is definitely why I was so drawn to Stranger Things and Game of Thrones for sure. Immersing myself in a TV show is one of my favorite things to do. Like sometimes TV has kind of served as like therapy for me at times. If you have never given some of the shows that I've talked about tonight a watch or even a passing thought, like do yourself a favor and reconsider. Every single one of them holds real value and is ridiculously bingeable. Trust me, I binge watch a lot. Well, not as much as I used to because I have a 6-year-old, but like suddenly it's 3 a.m. and you've watched 6 episodes in a row, bingeable shows. If any of you have any shows worth mentioning, or even one that is just near and dear to your heart that you love and want everyone else to know about, like drop it in the comments. I am always looking for new show recommendations, like no matter what the genre is. I am willing to give pretty much anything a try. It has been a lot of fun to share my love for television in general. Like I love talking about Yellowjackets, but there are so many other shows that I'm incredibly passionate about as well. So I hope that once Yellowjackets does come to an end, that when I do dive into another show and go in depth the way I have with this show, that you will be ready and willing to join me for that ride. It was awesome hanging out with you, Emily. Have a wonderful night. Thanks, Angie. You too. As always, thank you for being here and for joining in on the discussion. And with that, until I spill again.